Here, bullet. If a body is what you want, then here is bone and gristle and flesh. Here is the clavicle snapped wish. Here is the adrenaline rush you crave. That inexorable flight, that insane puncture into heat and blood. And I dare you to finish what you've started. Because here, bullet, here is where I complete the words you bring hissing through the air. Here is where I moan the barrel's cold esophagus, triggering my tongue's explosives for the rifling I have inside of me. Each twist of the round spun deeper, because here, bullet, here is where the world ends. Every time. Brian Turner was an infantry team leader in Iraq. This soldier poet gives us haunting images of war from his first-hand encounters. These are selections from Here, Bullet by Brian Turner. It begins simply with a fist, white-knuckled and tight, glossy with sweat, with two eyes in a rearview mirror watching for a convoy. The radio, a soundtrack that adrenaline has pushed into silence, replacing it with a heartbeat, his thumb trembling over the button. A flight of gold. That's what Safwan thinks as he lights Miami, draws in the smoke, and waits in his taxi at the traffic circle. He thinks of summer, 1974, lifting pitchforks of grain high in the air, the slow fall of it like the fall of Shata's hair. And although it was decades ago, he still loves her, remembers her standing at the canebrake where the buffalo cooled shoulder deep in the water, pleased with the orange cups of flowers he brought her. And he regrets how so much can go wrong in a life, how easily the years slip by, light as grain, bright as the street's concussion of metal, shrapnel traveling at the speed of sound to open him up in blood and shock, a man whose last thoughts are of love and wreckage, with no one there to whisper him gone. Nothing but hurt left here. Nothing but bullets and pain and the bled out slumping and Jesus Christs of the wounded. Nothing left here but the hurt. Sergeant Ladeau of the National Guard speaks, but cannot hear the words coming out, and it's just as well as eardrums have ruptured, because it lends the world a certain calm. Though the traffic circle is filled with people running in panic, their legs a blur like horses in a carousel, turning and turning, the way the tires spin on the Humvee flipped to its side, the gunner's hatch he was thrown from, a mystery to him now. A dark hole in metal, the color of sand. And if he could, he would crawl back inside of it. And though his fingertips scratch at the asphalt, he hasn't the strength to move. Shrapnel has torn into his ribcage, and he will bleed to death in minutes. But he finds himself surrounded by a strange beauty. The shine of light on the broken, a woman's hand touching his face tenderly the way his wife might, amazed to find a wedding ring on his crushed hand. The bright gold sinking in flesh and going to bone. Rashid passes the bridal shop on a bicycle, with Sefa beside him, and just before the air buckles and breaks, he glimpses the sidewalk reflections in the storefront glass. Men and women walking and talking, or not, an instant of clarity, just before each of them shatters under the detonation's wave. The civil affairs officer, Lieutenant Jackson, stares at his missing hands, which make no sense to him, no sense at all to wave these absurd stumps held in the air, where just a moment before he'd blown bubbles. Out the Humvee window, his left hand holding the bottle, his right hand dipping the plastic ring in soap, filling the air behind them with floating spears. like the oxygen trails of deep ocean divers. Something for the children, something beautiful, translucent globes with their iridescent skins, drifting on vehicle exhaust and the breeze. That kind of hope. Small globes which may have astonished someone on the sidewalk. 7 minutes before Lieutenant Jackson blacks out from blood loss and shock, with no one there to bandage the wounds that would carry him home. Nearby, an old woman cradles her grandson, whispering, rocking him on her knees as though singing him to sleep. Her hands wet with their blood, her black dress soaked in it as her legs give out and she buckles with him to the ground. If you'd asked her 40 years earlier if she could see herself, an old woman, begging by the roadside for money here, with a bomb exploding at the market among all these people, she'd have said, to have your heart broken one last time before dying, to kiss a child given sight of a life he could never live, it's impossible. This isn't the way we die. And the man who triggered the button, who may have invoked the prophet's name or not, he is obliterated at the epicenter. He is everywhere. He is of all things. His touch is the air taken in, the blast and the wave, the electricity of shock. His is the sound the heart makes quick in the panic's rush, the surge of blood searching for light and color. His soul is made of Inshallah. Believe it, when 4 men step from a taxi cab in Mosul to shower the street in brass and fire, open the hurt locker and see what there is of knives and teeth. Open the hurt locker and learn how rough men come hunting.